Hi everyone, welcome to Lecture 3. We're going to talk about mitigating factors this week in business solutions for IT. It's something that we all always put together in our minds. What are mitigating factors first off? Well, there's things in the organizational structure, and we talked a little bit before about the idea of Bowman and Dielsford frames. We talked about how the structural frame and a father in a company can be so influential that he'll never let his children make a decision. Or, if we're looking at a persuasive frame, we can see how a president might want to not let his subordinates make decisions as well, or be so controlling because he doesn't want his statute to be swayed by the public opinion. These are all mitigating factors. Also, parts of the business process can be mitigated. Just think about it. If something changes in the way we do a factory line, for instance, we have to cut back the number of people, we'd have to change the amount of rules each person does on that line. That would be a mitigating factor. The political forces in the area of our organization could be something. If we're in a war-torn area, our third world country, and water is shut down, think about how it would have ramifications on your employees. What happens if a war breaks out to where your suppliers are located? You wouldn't be able to get a single part, hence you wouldn't be able to put together the whole piece to sell to your client. Culture is another thing. There's culture in the organization and culture in your community. We talk a lot about organizational culture here, to where a lot of times that frame that you're working under determines it. In the human resources frame, it's obviously laid out for you in handbooks and guides, tutorials, and tests you have to take, how you're to act, the etiquette, the ethics. In the community, it might be very different. There's influencing factors there. If we're in Saudi Arabia, we might not be able to use the same color or able to employ a woman for a job role. There's many different things in the cultures that we have to think about and how our community influences the business factors and the mitigating factors that come from it. Our environment alone can do this. Sometimes we have to think about where we're shipping to. If you're in Alaska or way up north, you might have to wait till ice freezes so a truck can travel across an area. It can only get to certain supplied areas when the ice is fully frozen. It'd be an interesting concept to where you have to actually time yourself around deliveries if you're a delivery company for frozen ice that makes a roadway. Climate is not exactly the climate that I say in a weather-related issue. This could be whether or not, again, it's a hot zone, whether it could be war-torn areas which you're trying to get parts from or supplies. These could be raw materials. Think about how IT is actually taken down to its core, to processors. And think about all the actual raw elements that are brought into computers that are needed to make these processors, these silicon chips today. A lot of these places and minerals are coming from war-torn areas. And a lot of times you can't reach them. They might be under a tribal land and they won't allow you to dig. These are all types of environmental and climate issues. Organizational factors just don't stop there. Social is a long list of materials and things to think about. It works every aspect, from the production to your actual getting the raw materials. We have to think about whether or not in this area we have the capital to invest, or can we get capital? Can we borrow from a bank? Do we have enough labor? In a lot of areas where companies are trying to work to get pieces together for their main product for clients, there's not a labor pool, or there might not be skilled labor because you're working in a lower income area or an area that does not have academic support. A lot of times the primary production area alone can hinder its actual factors itself. Think about this. If you need to train something all the time and your company is not located near train tracks to get it across the country, that would be a factor in your organization that causes complication, because you'd have to rely on a third party to do shipping or create a third aspect in your company for shipping just to get to shipping routes for trains. This will require more manpower, special equipment to load and unload, trucks, special employees who have licenses to drive the trucks. A lot of things that you don't think about in the daily tasks. are part of this whole primary production element. We lean back to behavioral ideas a lot of times. And inside of this, companies, especially human resources frame, really have to look at these and what our values are and our obligations. We have to form a collection of rights for each employee. We have to understand what their privileges are. In IT, this could be a matter of being allowed into a certain file, into a gate, into a secure area. Think of the government. How many different privileges there are, different levels of security. We don't just think of these as responsibilities in a lot of cases. Organizations look on values. They have a value or a mission statement that people sign off. In IT, a lot of times we have a charter. The charter clearly defines what our values, our mission is, when our milestones are supposed to be reached, how we work together, how we value each other. Human resources looks at norms and the way people are supposed to evaluate each other and how we're supposed to act ethically, hire ethically. These are all considerations and factors organizations are faced with today, not just IT solutions, but factors of human conditions. Standard operating procedures are a lot of times administered through human resources, or at least the human resource frame. They are the rules. You have to show up to work at 8 a.m. You have to wear pants. You have to come with a tie on. You have to wear a jacket if you're a professor. There's procedures. You got to make sure you show up early. I got to make sure I grade you. I got to make sure that I'm fair in my grading. I got to make sure that when we put out a product or we look at a book that I've evaluated the book that I give you to make sure it is actually something that's going to be effective or a tool for you down the road. We have practices to perform. A lot of times they're called rituals. And these rituals can be something as interesting as a religious value that we have to understand. We have to have the mental capacity and cognitive recognition to accept someone else so that we can work as a team. We have to know our practices in a team. If we are a person who's to administer security passwords, we have to know all the rules and procedures to how we administer those passwords and to whom. I like to look at rules and procedures of how they can change things. A great example is Chicago in the early 80s was flooded in the emergency room. They could never get people in the emergency room that really needed help, especially during the winter times. Well, they found that the homeless individuals knew that there was warmth inside the hospitals and they couldn't be turned away because of law. Any hospital accepting public funds has to allow anybody in whether or not they have insurance or not. Knowing this, homeless people would go into the ER just to get away, to get into the heat, to get somewhere to sleep warm. But this clogged the ER from real cases of real need. One of the things that they found was a lot of times they faked heart attacks. So in order to do this, they came up with a solution, a way for evaluating whether or not a person needs a bed or not needs a bed. The first thing was the charge nurses at the front doors would find out whether or not the individuals had certain key elements: sweating, chest pains, tightness, something sitting on them, arm pain, specifically left in the men. Maybe they had stomach pain if they were females, that was an indicator. If they got to this far, they would take them to the next stage and bring them in, sit them down, take a pulse rate, ask the valuable questions that they need to know about their health and how they're acting. And if they passed even further and they can see more, they would put them on an EKG machine, which would show them a digital readout. This digital readout would determine whether or not they're actually having an episode, a heart attack. At this point, they would then give them a bed, so where they are looked at and evaluated for a 24-hour period, and after the 24-hour period, evaluate how they were going to handle them. Release them because it was anxiety or some other mitigating factor, or keep them and possibly put them through the next stage, which is a full outright heart test, to where they put them on a treadmill, running through a CAT machine, put isotopes in them to look at the blood's possibilities of being stopped in the heart area. These are all ways that they mitigated having rooms filled up inappropriately. So organizational structures is something we need to talk a little more clearly about. Minzenberg has kind of 5 classifications, but look at it a little deeper, and there's more to this, and we'll evaluate that later in the course. But obviously, in the 5 stages, there's this entrepreneurial structure, which is the root of all businesses. Someone has to have, a single person has to be the CIO or the president, and they have to have that mindset. They are small in organizations, a lot of times family or friend orientated, like we've seen with Zappos case, where Tony Hsieh was able to work with his friend and create a whole business model, which they sold for millions, and then ended up creating Zappos later, now part of Amazon and others. But they have a very fast climate. They're willing to take risks. They have minimal worry about failure because they don't have much invested. Versus the machine bureaucracy, this is a very large climate. And they are the first start of a management team because they need to be able to manage people overall. This might be where your family breaks out and they really start making it in the market. The entrepreneur starts having to hire people to meet the demands for the product, and they moved into this machine bureaucracy. Things start slowing down. They don't make as fast decisions. They start allowing themselves time to look at the market space and the shares. Their niche that they created is starting to be flattened, and IT helps flatten this area then, because when you do this, we need less people with the more technology we put in a lot of times. So the climate slows and become a management team. Versus divisionalized bureaucracy, this is when it gets very large. There's kind of multiple machines inside of this, I like to say. Or there's multiple teams. In the IT world, we call this agile. The agile idea of building a product together. There's multiple teams working on multiple aspects with team leaders that come together a lot of times just to communicate. This moves us into the professional bureaucracy idea, where it's more of a knowledge-based organization like we see in IT transfer of information and data, and reconstructing it into meaningful, thoughtful information for those senior individuals and makes the actual decisions. So here we have a lot of transfer people, or transfer heads, I like to call them. Others call them department heads or leads. They're the ones that form the lead on the information from the team members, formalize what they understand, transfer that to other team members or heads or transfer heads, which eventually comes into a meeting space for the upper middle echelon of management, who then accumulate that wealth and bring it into the senior management. The hierarchy is kind of the task force idea. This is a rapid response. We see this a lot of times in business continuity plans, to where its teams will come together, or heads will come together to form teams to implement plans quickly and fastly in cases of problems, power outages, tornadoes, things that happen in the system, a breakdown. Maybe we lost the grant from the government. How do we restructure? They're short-lived teams a lot of times to complete a quick task or an emergency task. One company is very different. They work on this theory at every second of their day. MITRE Corporation and System works on the idea of small teams that are interactive and agile and very fast and constantly response. Employees are charged with the idea that they are to get up and walk over and look at another team's project, and if they see themselves having a space there, interject themselves in right away. Become part of that team. Once they fulfill the mission, drop out and go back to their old team or go to another team. It's a constant fluid mission so that somebody has new ideas and flow. It's very rapid. And the teams form just to get small missions accomplished and piece together, then move on. They break up and they reassign to another team. And teams are listed digitally in the IT platform so they can constantly see updates of what's going on with other teams and look for new ways that they can interject themselves. The fluid system is very fast moving. One team you work on for a week might be gone the next. They divided up already because they accomplished some of the mission or seen they were needed elsewhere to come back to it. Very interesting system. It brings me the idea of disruptive technologies in organizations itself. Disruptive technologies, we should understand first, is a substitute products that perform as well or better a lot of times than the main product or something that's currently being produced in the market. I like the example of music. When I was a kid, my dad had an 8-track player in our car. It quickly went away. It was large and bulky and efficient in space. You couldn't really carry them. He used to have shoe boxes filled with them and bring them. The next thing you know, you had small tapes, cassettes. Now he had, instead of 4 or 5 boxes in the car of 8 tracks, he had 1 box of tapes. Not too long after that, we saw CDs come out. And now we had 4 to 5 times the amount of space in the same shoebox of information, of songs, and personalized tapes. Then it became down as small as the iPod. Now we don't even have the iPods, we carry it on our iPhone or clouds that we can access of material. Think about the banking industry, how it's changed too. We used to always go to the tellers. Then it came to the ATM machines as Citibank first came to eliminate some of the employees and overhead. People started using them. It was great. You can get money in, out, check your balances, and even deposit a check. Today, I don't even use them. I deposit everything on my phone. I take a quick picture, it goes directly into my account, it is registered. I need to transfer funds, I transfer everything digitally on my phone. A great case, and we'll talk about this deeper too, is Nonaka. It's one of my favorite kind of theorists, and he's a Japanese style theorist, and he looks at organizational structures and disruptive technologies and how we can learn from them or how we can adapt from them. Had a great theory when he looked at Ford Motor Company and Dodge and why they started failing so fast in the 80s. A disruptive organization came into America, Toyota. Specifically, they had Toyota Corolla, Toyota Camry. They were very cheap made cars. They were laughed at and mocked. Ford was building cars with luxurious interiors and luxury lines, and they'd have heated seats and heated steering wheels, CD players, and they'd have moon roofs and power windows and doors, 8 cylinders. And Toyota Camry came in and said, people need to get from A to B. They need an A to B that doesn't break down, doesn't need fixed all the time. The original cars had 4 doors, or even 2. They had roll-down windows. They had a cheap AM/FM type of radio, and they went. Cheap on gas, very lightweight, very efficient, very small tires, so they cost less. Comfortable seats. And all they ever needed, they boasted, was an oil change. High quality in the motors and parts. Fords were known to break down all the time. I had one, it was constant. Got to the point to where I looked at these cars and I said, why is he never broke down? My friend has a car now for 10 years. It still looks the same, still going, and all he says is, I've only done oil changes. And he keeps going. I drive a Toyota Camry today. I've had no problems, knock on wood. But the problem now is I want luxury too. So as this disruptive changes happen, so do other changes. So they start building. So Toyota started putting in comfortable seats and better radios and heated seats. So now they're a competitive market space. So the only other place they can go is start rebuilding that model, or guess what happens? Another disruptive technology comes in line. Yeah, it has. It's called Kia. This one's now a company that was seen the same way, but if you look today, Kias are very well respected. High-running 4-wheel drive machines that are known not to break down. Interesting how we see this disruptive technologies keep happening. I wonder what the next will be. Oh, I think we already know. We're seeing it right now. Very affordable electric cars. Very interesting what the world brings. One of the things that we have to think about this and the way that companies start cutting that loss from disruptive industries is transactions cost theory. Firms and individuals seek to economize on transactions cost, much as they do on production cost. Interesting statement. I wanted to read that just so you get that in your mind. Think about IT. When we become leaders, we're looking at reduction in time and force. One of the big things we bring IT into is communicating with distant suppliers. The more we're able to communicate with our suppliers that are on a long distance or see in real time the amount of supply or when it's been shipped or when we're receiving it, is the more comfortable we become. The more able we're to make decisions. We're able to monitor our capabilities or our supplies. We do this a lot of times too with insurance. I know it's rather not a raw material, but insurance companies will look at everything from data on weather patterns to whether or not they're willing to risk insurancing you. Think about water and how water will flood. And companies will look back 100 years to look at the flood range and whether or not data supports the idea that you're a good risk to insure or not. We think of all these different things as just active discoveries as well. Look at our university. Today, universities are no longer that easygoing come into a chair, hour, lecture, and leave that students are used to. They're very different because they're trying to look at economy of scales. They start producing more. How do they do this? Remote lectures. A lot of you are in a VCon course, virtual courses with me or other professors, to where my voice and face and image is transmitted virtually to multiple classrooms across multiple campuses. Pretty soon this will change because the company or the university will start marketing my courses to other universities and sell space. I can see this happening in the world of academics, to where now I'm not just working for one, I'm working for multiple. Oh wait, I've already done this. When I worked for education management corporations, they would do this. They shared the space across multiple different universities that they owned and shared the actual space of the classroom. How else does this work? Well, by doing this virtual, we start doing space reduction. We don't need as large of classrooms. We don't need the theater classrooms. We need small, which costs less to heat and cool. We start lowering those variable costs. We start lowering, more importantly, the sunk costs. For those of you not in the business world, the sunk cost is kind of costs you can't get out of. If you have a classroom, you have to have a desk. You have to have a chair. You have to have a computer for every student that comes into this room. You have to have a keyboard. You have to have a visual way to see them. You have to have a chalkboard. These are all sunk costs, things that you can't get out of, that they're going to happen, and you're going to replace repeatedly. But when we go to these VCon situations, we start needing less of this. Yes, if it's transmitted to another classroom, you still need. But think about once we're able to start moving this into your own home. Many of other universities have gone this route and are quite successful. They are the model today. They're eliminating the classroom overall. I worked for a company for 8 years. After a few years, I stopped going to the classroom overall. My classroom was housed right now how we're doing this. And we did it virtually. You were able to see me. We'd meet up together the same time, but in a different space. You were in your home. Students were in their dorms in their socks and slippers. I was in my office, in my house. I saved plenty of time because I didn't have to drive an hour to the university, waste the gas, wear and tear in my car. So I was happy to buy my own computer to do this. The university saved more money because I maintained my own university issued computer a lot of times. And they looked at it as this: we'll give you the software and the hardware, you stay at home and you don't have an office here. They save space, computer costs there. Interesting how the changing some costs look today. The agency theory is a different way that organizations can lower costs through utilizing third-party companies. We see this every day in every industry. I use again the university's idea. Think about this. In most universities, colleges, and businesses today, they still have lunchrooms. You have to have food if someone's there all day. A lot of people went to vending machines, which were very unfriendly, unhealthy with preservatives. So they went back and found that people wanted this. But when they did this, they had to hire employees. They had to hire chefs. They had to hire waitresses. They had to hire clerks. They had to hire cleaning staff. They had to have ovens. They had to have material for dispensers for sodas. Today, universities and most businesses are using third-party companies, a niche market. Why? It eliminates the employees. When you eliminate employees, you save money because you don't have to pay benefits to your employees. You don't have to maintain machines if they own the machines that cook the food and process everything. So the sunk costs are going down. You also don't have to have supplies of food on hand, which means you don't need to have freezers and cooling agents. You don't have to worry about government regulations on food quality and cleanliness. The third party has to worry about this. So you don't need a manager just to manage this issue. You have less overhead on managers when you're able to eliminate them and allow the third party to have this. When you start working with IT and you think about the managers and overhead here, IT is said to flatten organizations because we're able to spread quickly through one or two people to manage a product instead of 5 to 6 people who need to be on site. Someone to watch to make sure that everything's being clean. A morning shift or a night shift. You might have 3 shifts. This can be eliminated by one person who's automating and watching. Maybe that person works in different hours of the day like I do for the university. I have a morning class, sometimes I have a night class, I rotate around. I check 2 o'clock in the morning emails if I'm up, which I usually am. I'm easily transferring information last night, late at night for a student to make sure they're registered in a course to a registrar who's not there. Virtually replied back to me when she saw this. IT flattens, it eliminates the middleman. One of the last things we'll talk about is Porter's competitive force model. It's how we look at things. There's kind of 4 stages that are predominant. The new market entrance ideas, these niche markets, they have low barrier costs. In other words, they have low cost to get in because they don't need to be as competitive. They're just looking for a certain area to make their overhead happen. Pizza shops are a great example. Domino's is huge. They have advertising to fight the little guy. They have fast-making pizza machines and everything that they need for speed and boxes. A small pizza shop might just need a small oven. Mom, dad, and son working on it for extra money. They're a competitive force. The suppliers, the price, the quality, and delivery are key things. Think about this. There's ways it can be changed as well and have a different force. Keyboards are all needed for computers today, but PCs in a lot of cases won't have to manufacture their own keyboard. They can buy from third-party vendors who make keyboards. Put them in as a package deal. There's different ways that leadership can be innovative and innovations itself. I've talked about the model of Walmart before and their inventory stocking. As soon as you pick something up off the shelf and scan it in as being sold, a new one is automatically ordered to replenish this. We've seen this in many different areas like Home Depot's barcode transmissions, their mobile applications to constantly monitor that checks up their inventory and stock as well, from site location to person purchasing. Amazon started the automatic feedback systems to where returns are automatically set up once you purchase something. So as soon as you get it, you don't like it, click it, I don't like it. You answer the question automated why. If it's a selected automated response that allows you to return, like shoe size didn't fit, shirt didn't fit, wrong color. Click, return, print out your label. These are automated feedback systems that reduced a lot of workforce and time. Substitute products are something we've started talking about slightly. Think about ethanol for gasoline or vegetable oil for diesel fuel. These are big things happening today. Solar and wind power can be exchanged for buying electricity from a local electricity company. Virtual employees is one of my favorites. Think about the IT world. We saw this in Dell when they farmed out all of their IT people, and mostly they were individuals who worked in one central place and worked as help desk to help you through this. A lot of times they were in Chicago or India. Customers are always a force in a competitive model. We have to understand buying behaviors. A lot of times today we use IT to make mass customization. Think about Vans as a pair of shoes when I was a kid. You could write on a piece of paper that you wanted pink checkers on one shoe, black checkers on another, or pink dinosaurs on one, blue on another. You could change everything from the front of the sole to the back to the color of the laces and send in your card, and they would make this in about 3 to 4 weeks. You get your shoes back. Today, on IT Solutions, you click whatever you want. If you're putting together an outfit on Amazon, you can grab a red jacket. You can grab and change one to say sleeveless or one that has zippered off sleeves. You can buy different pants and put it all together in your shopping cart and send it in instantly. In 2 days, you will get your packages. A lot of these companies are looking to combine their products themselves. Look at the iWatches and different systems today, the ecosystems, and how they're looking to see whether or not people and companies are combining this idea to help lower their insurance costs. We see this with Fitbit too, and other products that are out there as innovative disruptions in the marketplace. iWatch created the ecosystem to say, hey employee, you're not walking enough, get up and walk. That gets your blood circulating. You're not working out enough. There's other different factors. Your heart rate is too low or too high. These are all systems that are being combined to sell one product that creates a competitive advantage. Just even the systems in IT alone. Think about Amazon's one-click purchasing. I can do it mobile. I click what I want, buy it right now. I just click one purchase. Boom. It automatically sets it up to my profile, how I've predetermined the card that I want to use to pay for it, and a shipping location. Done. Amazon's really good at creating these good reads or annotations to where others will share information to help you purchase something. Delta's Flyer Talk puts personal profiles in so they understand what you like to speed up the process, which makes it more reliable for you to come back. It creates an IT value chain. When we're looking at data and information to put it together on someone, the more we collect, the more we can automate to help them through analysis be repeat customers for us to use our model. This is a competitive force as well. It's interesting how IT is changing solutions today for business modeling. We're using this almost in the essence of profiling our customers or helping a company profile. The same with marketing. The more information the Nike has about you, the more actuality they are to send you a coupon if they understand that you're learning to run or wanting to get into fitness, that you might want to try their socks that go with their shirts and headbands and sweatproof if you're in a hot climate area, or a cold weather one to change over an ad that goes directly to you for cold weather gear that Nike produces, such as shoes with traction, heavier coats, breathable hats. So today we're learning a little bit more about mitigating factors and how some of these exterior things can control your business solution, or how IT actually creates solutions for you in the business. We'll talk a little more next week about some of these ideas, and we'll look at Porter's theory a little deeper too. Have a great day, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your day, and I hope you go out there, ride a bicycle, see some sunshine, take a walk, walk a dog, volunteer to walk a dog at a shelter. Do something important for someone else and yourself. Remember, we're academics, but we're also people. Have a great day.